2, 3 live. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في سبيل الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين ونحن على ذلك من الشهيدين. أما بعد فإن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. أما بعد. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, who is better than speech than the one who conveys the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he calls into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and says, I am among the believers. With that being said, my dear respected brothers and sisters, I have a colleague and a friend and I don't know what else I could call him. He's and my sheikh too. On the top of that, inshallah. Sheikh Kamal al-Makki, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honor him and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate his status. I know this guy. I loved him from the first time I seen him, I hope his wife is not hearing me, but otherwise, I'm a big brother. But I love this guy from the bottom of my heart. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Kamal, for being here and taking the time for us to be with us. So inshallah, today's topic with Allah Ta'ala, my dear brothers, we're going to be talking about why should we make da'wah? Because thing is, we live in the era in which that many people say, myself, why should I care about conveying this message? Yes, I'm a Muslim, I believe in Islam, I fully witness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one and I love Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So why should I, especially if I'm living in the West, why should I bother of conveying the message to my neighbors? Why should I bother convey the message to my colleagues and etc.? Should I just, be just like a normal person? Can I be like a normal person, a normal Muslim, and just be who I am without telling others about Islam? So that's the question, my dear respected brothers, we're going to be discussing today. Inshallah, we're going to be taking a 10-second commercial, and inshallah, Sheikh Kamal Makki is going to be all yours with Allah Ta'ala. So, small break with a small commercial, and then we'll start. So, Sheikh Kamal, welcome to our show, and Jazakallah khair for making the time to be with us, and this is always a blessing. Jazakallah khair, habibi.
Barakallah feek. Thank you so much. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Amma ba'd. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor for me. And I would like to also express my love. The feeling is mutual. When I saw Dr. Marwan, I came back home and I told my wife, like the minute I saw him, we clicked immediately. Beautiful person. I will say there are two people in this world that I always wish I lived next to. One of them is Dr. Marwan, and I forgot the other one. I'll tell you something, Doctor. When you were talking and you were presenting that attitude that people have, like, I don't bother people, I let people do their own thing. Someone asked me about Islam, I just give them a simple answer, then I walk away because I don't want to be something. Wallahi, that's such a merciless way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people, imagine your neighbor is your worst enemy. You hate him so much, this neighbor. He's so bad to you and so rude to you and your family. But one day you're backing your car out of your driveway, and you see him, he caught on fire and he's running around. What are you going to do? Bas as a human being, you see him, your neighbor caught on fire, and you hate him, and you do hate him. But you see him on fire, he's screaming and running, and what are you going to do? You will injure yourself trying to protect him. True or false? So you're going to rush to him, and you're going to have a concerned look on your face. You're not just going to quickly lower your window and yell, hey, stop, drop, and roll. You're going to care so much. I always tell, when you say something like that, what about the fire of the hellfire. Wal-'iyadhu billah. May Allah protect us from that. It's so severe, and it can't be your position that no, I just gave him the bare minimum. If he wants to burn, there's enough room there. La ya habib. It's serious. So that's why I said, I wanted to make my first point about why you should give da'wah, because it's about caring for people. Wallah, it's about caring for people. When we have verses in the Quran that reveal the inner sentiment of a Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you lived with the Prophet sallam, you maybe wouldn't have known how much it's affecting him inside that people are not becoming Muslim. That's how much he cared. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to tell him, فَلَا تَذْهَبْ نَفْسُكَ عَلَيْهِمْ حَسَرَاتٍ. It's powerful. It's like saying, don't die out of sorrow because they don't believe in Islam. We have the same thing in Surah Al-Kahf. فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. You're going to kill yourself in grief because of their footsteps, meaning they're turning away from you and from your message. Don't kill yourself with sadness. That's how much he cared. And that's how much all the prophets cared. That's why you always see in the Quran prophets being gentle, speaking to their people. Ya qawm, ya qawm. The people will threaten the prophet and he will say, Ya qawm, ya qawm. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ya abati. Even after he tells him, Uhajurni maliya, I don't ever want to see you again. Ya abati, ya qawm. Because they cared. And I'll tell you something, Doctor. The people that we've met that were excellent du'at, what set them apart from everyone else was that they cared. Yes. We used to give da'wah in Washington, D.C. This is back when Washington, D.C. was black, right? Mm-hmm. And we had this African-American brother, and he would be there before everybody and working hard and talking to everyone, never getting tired. And then one day he revealed his secret without intending to. He said, these are my people. I love them. Yeah, he was driven by that. This is like what it's about. It's about caring,
So Sheikh, I think what's interesting is that people, like, sometimes I see Muslims who are, they say, oh, I love my friend, okay, or we're friends, with their non-Muslims, and they might like go have lunches together, and they might go out and might have inventions together, but the idea of coming to them that introducing Islam, it feels kind of heavy. And again, I always tell them, like, do you really love them? They said, yes, I do. He said, okay, do you love for them to go to the hellfire? And then this is like the point of, like, okay, we, then as if we care about them in this world, but forget about them in the hereafter.
Wallah Jamil, actually, it's exactly what you're saying. I just put it in a more maybe dramatic way. This girl came to me at the end of class. She said, there's this girl, she's non-Muslim. We grew up together. We've been best friends our whole life, and we still see each other every single day. But I don't want to tell her about Islam so that the relationship becomes awkward. I tried to give her doubt. I said, okay, let me just say back what you're saying to me. Let me just rephrase it for you. Okay. There's this girl. She's my close friend. She's like my sister. I love her. She's an excellent person. But so as not to make our relationship a little bit awkward, if I call her to Allah, I would rather she burns in the hellfire for all eternity. I told her, that's what you're telling me. And then when she saw it that way, she's like, you're right. So how do I bring it up? It's so easy. You tell her, listen, we've been friends since childhood, all right? And I care for you so much. You're my best friend in this whole world. And you've seen me now putting on hijab, and you've seen me change a little bit. So because you're dear to me and you're someone important in my life, I wanted to explain to you what my beliefs are, because there's something important to me. I would like you to know what they are. Boom, there's your gateway for da'wah. It's like the easiest thing,
Beautiful.
Easiest thing.
So Sheikh, let me ask you this. Maybe the issue of love, maybe people, it might take a little bit of time for them to get to this aspect. Oh, I have to love my neighbor, my colleague, and I care about them, and that's why I'm making da'wah. But also, I think many people are missing the aspect that it's an obligation.
Oh, yeah.
An order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can you please comment on that, Sheikh Tuman?
Allah Yajzak, yes. Traditionally, the scholars, one group said da'wah is an individual obligation, and then the other group said that da'wah is if a group, fard kifaya, if a group does it, not everyone in the city has to do it. But the first group of scholars have more evidence. We have a lot more unrestricted general commands for everybody to give da'wah. So they said, yes, there are types of da'wah that are for higher level. Like there's a level of amr bil ma'ruf and nahi an munkar that's only for those assigned by the government, meaning the police force. Like you can't know, oh, there's a meth lab in the neighborhood after Isha, let's go. You come from the window, I've seen this in a movie, I'll bust the door open. La habibi. This is higher level forbidding evil here. So you can't do that. And there's higher level that's giving a fatwa, teaching tafsir, usul fiqh, that's higher level. But on a low level, everyone is obligated to give da'wah. You know how sometimes when I used to mention this in class, people would resist it. So my comeback was, think of an able-bodied Muslim. And don't tell me someone who's ma'arif, lost in an island. La, just a regular able-bodied Muslim who is sane of mind.
Yes.
And cannot give any type of da'wah, meaning even amr ibn ma'ruf nahi an munkar, meaning forbidding evil and enjoining good. Let's say the guy is incredibly ignorant, doesn't know anything. He just prays 5 times a day and comes back. Simple man in a simple village. What kind of da'wah can he give? Wallah, he can be going to salah. He sees a little boy using bad words. Hey, ya walad, don't use bad words. He sees a guy smoking. Hey, don't smoke. The guy tells him, what's your evidence? He says, I don't know, but I know it's haram. Don't smoke. You know? There's no way that there's a living person who's able-bodied and of sound mind and he can pass by a situation and not open his mouth. Everyone, whatever is their basic level, they can give da'wah up to that level. Yeah. Everybody. You know?
So, I mean, so what about some people use this mistranslation, I would call it, in which the people, I think it's Surah Al-Ma'idah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم, that لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم إلى الله مرجعكم فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. Like, so in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, it doesn't matter if they're guided or misguided. I have my own way and they have my own way. Is that a common mistranslation that people would use this verse for?
Yeah. Okay. That one. Or what if someone says, it's clear, Surah Al-Kafirun, I don't even have to go far to This guy, I love people who they're lazy and they want an excuse for they want dalil for laziness, right? I'm telling you. Look, one of the ways, it's very important for us to understand, one of the ways you understand the Quran is you don't isolate a verse by itself, but you look at that verse in light of other verses, right? Yes. I'll give you an easy example. This is not for you. You know this.
Every time I say this in front of you, I learn.
Allah barik. You know something? I used to be a radio host, and as a host, you have to ask questions like you don't know. But Dr. Marwan, come on. Everybody knows. All right, look. So for example, in Surah Al-Insan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna khalaqna al-insan. We have created the human being. So how do we know if it's Allah speaking about himself in the royal form, in the plural, to show magnificence, or if there are other creators? We go somewhere else, we know Qul huwallahu ahad, so now we understand what this verse means. One verse, in some verses, your family, your wives are enemies to you. In the other places, they're from zinat al-hayat al-dunya, they're from the enjoyment and blessings of this world. You put them together, you get balance, all right? So, Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun, that's, especially if you look at the reason behind its revelation, they were trying to make a deal. You worship our God, and that was an answer, right? Or that it will not harm you, or وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ, his only job is to convey, so he doesn't have to physically change. All these, you look at it, but then you cannot, because of one verse that perhaps someone misunderstood, ignore the other clear evidences to call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. This is my way. I call to Allah, I and those who follow me. And even this verse is interesting, how there are two tafsirs where one is saying, هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي, this is my path. So the scholar said, what is this? Some said this is referring to Islam. So Islam is my path, my way, and I call people to my way. Other mufassirin said, this is referring to da'wah. It's like saying da'wah is my life and I call people to Allah. So you can't ignore all the evidence on one side because you saw one verse that said, oh, don't worry about it. والله أعلم يعني. والله أعلم.
يعني and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يعني and the scholars they said this, يعني ud'u ila sabila rabbika bil hikmati wal mawadi al hasan. This is like from the rules of fiqh, you know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives an order, you know, makes it an obligation. And يعني subhanallah, I think people in the West, because we live like thing is, when you are in America, everybody like they live in this bubble, you know, like, okay, the bubble of my house, you know.
Oh yeah.
And I think I mean, and I wish if you could comment on this, Sheikh. The thing is, some people like, because I think one of the main barriers that people I think must overcome is the fact that people think this is just you know, I don't want to get in other people's business, you know, this is my business, because the thing is, people sometimes they have their own, you know, family, you know, issues, family secrets, and they don't want to like step in other people's boundaries. And they think that this is kind of a sacred thing. Okay, I know you. We could go out. We could do this. We could do that. But you know what? You know, I'm not gonna go overstep my boundaries of getting into your religion or inviting you. And I think that's one of the main things that I think people need. Like we don't have this back home, like in Middle East, and everybody's in everybody's business. And I think this is an extreme. And
absolutely. How much you get paid and how many hours you work and where do you meet your wife. يا خلاص بالراحة يا أخي, take it easy. يعني I used to hate that when I used to travel. The guy who picked me up from the airport starts 1,000,001 questions. Where did you meet your wife? يعني I have to tell you 4 stories now. All right, I'm kidding. Just one story. You know, it's actually, Dr. Marwan, I think it's part of how they framed it. Yani, you in your mind made it getting into people's business, okay? But it's never what it was. Religion is one of the most important aspects in people's lives. All right, what happens after this world is the most important thing ever. So you're framing it, the way you framed it paralyzes you from moving forward, and because I'm getting into people's business. How about you're saving lives? Yani, right. If your neighbor's house is on fire, you can break your door and save his children. You're like, well, I don't want to break the door and get in his business. La habibi, you break that door, break the window, come on, and break something else on your way out, because it's. But the way they framed it paralyzes them. And also, suppose it was getting into people's business, all right? But Allah told you get in their business. Allah commanded you to give da'wah. So if it's getting into people's business, Allah commanded you get in their business. Yalla, go do it. If Allah commands you to get in His business, get in His business.
I think one aspect that I think many people are missing is that without da'wah, what would happen, Sheikh? Like, thing is, like, imagine this. Like, imagine if literally all the du'a stop. Like, let's say, okay, today we're gonna push the off button. Okay. No more da'wah. No, khalas, absolutely zero. Imagine this scenario. What would happen? I mean, imagine, because thing is here, many people, I think they're misrealizing that in this world there's a struggle between goodness and evil, and the evil people are conveying their message left and right, side to side, and they're trying to spread their evil. And if the people of righteousness, the people of taqwa, the people of iman, the people in the right path, they're also trying to do. This is what they're supposed to do. So imagine if, like, literally everybody stopped. Okay, we gotta stop. No more da'wah. This is outside of our business. What would happen?
Yeah, wallahi, Sheikhna, I always think of this like, imagine, like, that person who doesn't want to give da'wah or feels like, I'm getting into people's business. I tell them, imagine the companions and the generation after them and the 2 generations after that. Imagine they had your same attitude. Would you be Muslim today? Exactly. Would we be having this show? Yes, talking to each other? We wouldn't. We would just be somewhere. So this mentality is devastating. That's one, and to say that, everyone mind your own business and nobody put effort. That's what it's all about. That's how the religion spread. That's how it spread to all corners of the world. And if everybody had that attitude, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be Muslim, It's
and all of the Sahaba, obviously, they did not stay in Mecca. I mean, I'm sure we know this. The majority of the Sahaba, they died somewhere else. You know, whether it was in North Africa, in the Sham, in Yemen. And this is part of the orders that was, you know, that they obtained from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which they supposed to be conveying the message. We don't want to, like, as if somebody. We don't want to keep this goodness to ourselves. We don't want to keep this justice to ourselves. We want to spread this to other people. And I think this is something that many Muslims unfortunately don't understand. Question, ya Sheikh. Now, تفضل.
No, I just remember this story. One time I was with this sheikh, and we were in Baltimore. And you know, Baltimore has some very poor areas. We're in one of the very poor areas in Baltimore.
Yes.
And it was just like, I can't describe how bad that neighborhood was, you know. And people just standing outside, and you can see that just the sadness and the ka'aba in their life. And then the sheikh said, يعني, I feel so bad for these people because they're poor and they're not believers in Allah Azza wa Jal. So they get the worst of both worlds. That's why in one of the du'as that we say every morning, Allahumma afini fi badani, Allahumma afini fi sam'i, Allahumma afini fi basari, la ilaha illa ant, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kufri wal-faqr. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from poverty and kufr, disbelief. The scholars say because that's like the worst two things that can be combined in a human being. A life of misery and poverty, and then nothing in the next life either. So wallahi, that the caring aspect, the humane aspect of da'wah, in my mind, it just shines through. It's like one of the strong motivators, you know. If anyone just had that attitude of sit back, wallahi, that's not caring. You know, Dr. Marwan, I'm gonna tell you, one of the things that always gets on my nerves, right? The minute a celebrity dies, okay, مش عارف, the basketball guy Kobe Bryant dies, Michael Jackson, ما عارف, a Prince. Every time someone dies, yalla, hear the rahmah of the Muslims. Rest in peace on Facebook. So rest in peace, Ash. If you're merciful, you call people to Allah while they're alive. Mush, after they die, you start breaking the rules. Rest in peace, man, rest in peace. So your rahmah is manifested through da'wah. That's how it's manifested.
True. That's true. This is absolutely jazakallah khair. So what about the excuse that many people say? Wallahi, ya Sheikh, you know, okay, I understand where we're coming. I wanna care. But ya akhi, I mean, look, I'm a Muslim. I mind my business, but I don't know much about Islam. I don't. Okay, I'm not educated enough for me to give da'wah to my friends, and I don't know. So what should I do? I mean, I know Tawheed. I know what's my options here.
Wallahi, you know, okay. I mean, I don't even know how to, like, if I just start answering that question, I'm acknowledging that there's a reason to be ignorant today. Wallahi, there isn't. Like, it's a shame. And then that same guy who says, I don't know much about Islam, he knows engineering so well, or he knows medicine so well, or he knows about celebrities who divorced whom, he knows so well.
Big time. Huh? They give you the history too. They give you, mashallah, the record. Wallahi, in 1998, the score was 34 against 35. And it was within 40 minutes, within the first term, they took a 5-minute break. Oh, look, man, how do you get all this information, man? It's like
sports. We don't forget sports. Like the amount of information, you know, not only the player, but the player's wife's name come on. But the Malako al-Mrati, you know his wife's name. But So one, I have to like comment on that. Like, there's no excuse for ignorance anymore. It's impossible. Knowledge at your fingertips, classes everywhere. That's one. The second thing is, this is a true story. I used to silence those who say I don't know anything about Islam. There's a guy, and he's still alive. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept him and accept his good deeds. He's still alive. He's in New York City. He's in a hospital. He hasn't left the hospital in 20-some years. He's a very famous guy. Actually, I used to talk about him for years. And then one day I spoke about him in a lecture, and someone came up to me and said, I just came from him. We can go visit him. He's actually a Sudani man, paralyzed from the neck downwards, right? When I heard this story, he lives in the hospital. He can't go anywhere. I heard this story 16 years ago. So I don't know how many people became Muslim because of him today. He's paralyzed from the neck downwards. He brought 100 people to Islam. He doesn't talk to anybody, by the way. So he has pamphlets sitting on a table, and he can only move his neck and speak. So when people come, he'll tell them, hi, how are you? Just take one of those pamphlets, please, and read it. That's it. That's his skill. let me tell you something. Everybody can do better than this man, because you
sure.
can do something he can't do. Here, take this, read it. You can do something he can't do. You can hand someone a pamphlet. And he brought 100 people to Islam. Wallahi, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. And it's not, by the way, and Dawah, as Dr. Marwan knows, Dawah isn't just speaking all the time. It's passing out pamphlets. It's Dawah online. It's through, I'll tell someone, if you're too scared to even put the pamphlet in your neighbor's door, mail it to him.
Yes.
He's your next door neighbor. Yalla, mail it to him.
Subhanallah.
There's just no excuse anymore.
It reminds me of like the hadith of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إن المرء لا يتكلم بالكلمة لا يلقي لها بالا يرفع الله بها درجات. يعني a man would speak one word, and he does not notice it. Like he disregard it. He said without paying attention, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would elevate him in Jannah levels upon levels. And subhanallah, like so the fact, Sheikh, that you are talking about this guy, this Sudanese guy, is an evidence for this. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have spread his story to internet, and subhanallah. This is an evidence for what we're saying. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have more people know about him. Maybe they don't know his name, but they know like this guy have done so and so, and he's maybe sick in a hospital. Subhanak ya Rabbi.
Absolutely, wallahi. And so many stories, wallahi. So many stories.
What about the hadith sallallahu alaihi wasallam? بلغوا عني ولو آية.
Yeah, that's the hadith that when I was talking about the first group of scholars, he said they mentioned that hadith, بلغوا عني ولو آية, convey about me even if it's one verse or one word, right? And what they said here is that the Prophet was speaking. This was in his final khutbah, right? And he's speaking to a large number of people, and he didn't signify or specify only scholars, only mashayikh, only people who they said everyone, or actually I think I'm confused. In the Hajj he said فَلْيُبَلِّغِ الشَّاهِدِ الْغَائِبِ, those who are present, let them convey to those who are not present. So what's interesting is that just the fact that they were there and they heard qualified them to spread it to someone else. Just the fact that they were there and they heard it, that means they were qualified to convey it to somebody else. بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةٍ. And so it was just a general command as well. And enjoining good, forbidding evil, these are general commands as well. So for someone to try to hide behind, it's if a group, I always tell people, because I used to, when I went to Durban, South Africa, they have, Ahmed Didat rahimahullah had his organization there. Right. So people grew up with those people giving da'wah around them. And they wholeheartedly believe that they don't have to give da'wah because that organization is giving da'wah, this other organization is giving da'wah. And I just told them, is there any scenario in the world where I could walk by, see something happening that's whatever wrong or that needs correction in the street, but I stop and look at it and say, I don't have to do anything here because a mile and a half down the road there's an organization that does da'wah that absolves me from having to react in this situation. That doesn't even make sense. They're giving that over there. Good for them. What are you doing? I mean,
it's like let's keep the reward for them. And I'm like, subhanallah, I'm spreading reward left and right. I have so much reward in my pocket that I'm not going to go into poverty. Alhamdulillah, I'm not going to go bankrupt from the reward. Subhanallah.
Well, that's the thing, is like people are so frugal with their good deeds, like on the day of judgment, you recognize the value of a good deed. And if you have 1 million, you wouldn't give your dear sweet mother one good deed, right? Because their value. And now, but in the dunya, I always tell people, when there's an opening in the front, this is before COVID, when there was an opening in the front row in Salah, you see two people in the second row fighting. You take it, you take it. I've seen your good. You take it. I don't need it. Where's it? Rush over it. The companions used to compete over good deeds.
The thing is, like, one thing, Sheikh, that is, I think it's many people don't know. In the era that we live in right now, and the amount of misconceptions that exist and an amount of people attacking Islam, one thing that I think people misunderstanding is the fact that there is, it's not just an something, okay, good, wallahi, you get hasanat for you if you make da'wah. I see it as a form of obligation. Why? There is one book that I encourage everyone to read. It's called Mukhtasar Minhaj al-Qasidin by Sheikh Ibn Qudama. It's a very small book, and it's like very summarized version. And what he said, for instance, the people who in Iraq, this is at his time, okay? People in Iraq, because they were surrounded by Shia and all these misguided sects, it made it an obligation on them to know how to respond to all the accusations of the area that they live in.
Beautiful.
You see? So,
yes.
So based on the area that you are living in, if there is, for instance, a sect or a misconception that is spread, and wallahi, he said, wallahi, I don't know, I have knowledge, but yet, you are willing to seek knowledge for other things, like we mentioned. Sometimes people now, for them, al-Khams Salawat and the show in Netflix. We cannot compromise on that. It's like this. They're willing to do. It's like the seventh pillar of Islam now, Netflix. So or some sort of show that they're following. It's unbelievable. Like you have to do this. How are you going to make yourself immune from all of these things? You have to seek knowledge.
When you were talking earlier about how, like, it's just the bravery of some people, like, astonishes me sometimes. Like, you're driving your car, and now I know information about the driver in front of me because of his bumper sticker, and it's something haram and shameful, and he's proud of it.
Sure.
And then all kinds of people who do all kinds of things, who piercings and red orange hair, grabbing attention to themselves, and then the Muslim wants to hide it. Muhammad becomes Mo, and Bilal becomes Bill, and Umar Abdul Jalil becomes Brad, and then at work the Muslim is praying in the janitor's closet. When gays are coming out of the closet, went to Sallah in the closet. And don't just make sure you put your hand in as a sutra. Don't cross in front of your sutra. You can't be ashamed of al-haq,
No, and again, people of evil are proud, and that's fine. We have nothing against them. When somebody is putting bumper stickers to spread their mischief, it's fine. This is the beauty of this country. You could say and display whatever you want, but in the same token, part of being a Muslim, you want to display whatever you believe. You want it to be proud of it. This is part of, like, I would say, part of your identity. You want to show who you are and display what goodness that you have to the rest of the world.
And that's my point. Like, people display whatever they believe in, and we want to hide the truth of all things. That's what my point.
So, Sheikh, what would you suggest for people say, Wallahi, ya akhi, look, I'm with you. I love to make da'wah. I want to seek education for da'wah, but ya akhi, I'm busy. I am a typical employee. I'm busy. I don't have time to do this, or maybe I have I have time for my soccer. I have time for this and that. But when it comes to da'wah and making da'wah, wallahi, akhi, I am busy. And every time I try to go to the da'wah, something comes up and my plan gets destroyed. What's your recommendation to them?
Something? Wallah, I'll tell you. I learned this from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet went to a Ta'if, when we were kids, we thought that he went to a Ta'if, it didn't work out, he came back Bilal at night or something. The Prophet spent 10 days in a Ta'if, and the scholar said he had a household, he had his daughters, and he had mouths to feed, he had responsibilities, but he forced time for da'wah. So the quote I always say in class, the du'at are not the people who have free time, and that's why they give da'wah. The du'at are busy like everyone else, but they force time for da'wah. Like Dr. Marwan is a doctor. He doesn't just sit around. He's saving lives and giving people 200 milligrams of musharif. But you force time for da'wah. That's how it works. Nobody has free time anymore for anything. Nobody has free time to do anything. But you force time for it. The one who wants to memorize Quran, he doesn't do it because, Wednesdays I have nothing. Nobody has nothing anymore. But he forces time for it. So that's the idea. And another interesting point, and this is one of our mashayikh, Sheikh Ja'far Idris, Hafidhullah, he brought up this point. It was beautiful. He said sometimes you see a young man and he like lives in the masjid. He's one of the pillars of the masjid. Front row, he's there in the front row. There's the event, he's giving rice to people. He's just there. Then he gets married. And you say, Rahimahullah, he used to be a great person. We used to always see him, one wife, khalas. Before children, he disappears. And he said the Prophet ﷺ at one point had 9 wives, and he's digging the ditch, and he's going to Tabuk, walking 2/3 of the way, and Ma'rif, he's doing this, and building the masjid. And he said, that's you making time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Sure.
So the time thing, and you know what used to frustrate me in the old days? Like I'll tell people, we have this issue, no, I don't have any time. And then in the same conversation, 2 minutes later, last night I was watching Lord of the Rings. Habibi, isn't that a 3-hour-long movie?
It is.
You have time. You do have time. It's just time management, really.
That's the thing. It's like Lord of the Rings is a one-time movie and khalas. Okay. What about all these movies and all these series that comes out each and every day and Netflix? Like for there's one show is like half 200. The Turkish show or something like this.
Oh, the Erdogan, whatever, Erdogan.
Yeah. Erdogan, yeah. It's like literally people like, man, wallahi, I'm in episode 157, and I'm like, dude, what do you have time for all of this? And then like, wallahi, I don't have time to memorize the Quran. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay.
لا واحلى شيء he thinks he's learning history. لا حبيبي, it's a show. Take it easy, okay? I'll take notes, قال. Relax. You know how many people are fluent in Turkish now because of that?
Yeah, I know. That's the problem. Subliminal learning without even knowing. Subhanallah. So, Sheikh, what about people who that say, now, okay, I think as a da'i, when someone makes da'wah, we wanted to show the people the beauty of it and how the honor of making da'wah. Is there any like self-reward? Is there fulfillment? Being in this field, Sheikh Kamal, do you feel fulfillment after you do da'wah? Like when someone becomes a Muslim because of you, do you feel good about it? What are some of the rewards that should encourage us to do da'wah?
Jameel. Well, okay. Wallahi, I have a list of 5 or 6 things, right? But I like how you started with, what do you personally get out of it? Like, not even the ajr, which is also important, but what do you personally get out of it? I'll give you a practical example. We used to have in the old days at our university in Virginia, we used to have 2 days the da'wah table. It was like something like Tuesday, Thursday, 12 to 4, I don't remember, but something, it was always fixed like that. All right. In the beginning, it was just the sisters giving da'wah, and the brothers were like too busy. The brothers just complained, sisters are talking to strangers. Tabinta, you go down and you do something. But the point is this: fast forward a few weeks, and I would come down. It was in the place called the Johnson Center, and any corner I looked, I found a Muslim passing a pamphlet, talking to someone, and the students would just wait for da'wah day, da'wah table day, and they would be all over, and they would be helping and passing out and smiling and shaking hands. And why were they doing that? They were not being forced or pushed or paid, but they saw it increases their iman. So giving da'wah increases your iman. And of course, no doubt about it, the best teacher, and I don't mean person would be the Prophet ﷺ. But the best teacher is experience, is teaching yourself. So when you teach, like sometimes people ask me, oh, how do you have the answer ready? Habibi, one day someone asked me and I didn't have the answer. I went home angry. I looked it up. I said, next time, this is what I'm going to say. That's how. Experience is the best teacher. So your knowledge increases, your iman increases. What could be better than that?
Subhanallah.
You know?
And the amount of if you have, you're kind of hitting 2 birds with one stone. You're doing da'wah and then you're learning. And to be honest, when I was young, that's the biggest thing that was encouraging me to do so. The thing is, every time I get an question and I don't know how to do, I look it up and it's fine. And the beauty, Sheikh, is the fact when you look something up, you will never forget it.
Oh, you'll never forget it. And especially if the experience was you were embarrassed or you didn't know how to answer, you will never forget it.
There's an emotional aspect attached to it,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why experience is just the best teacher. And of course, you now have the added bonus, like when you at Ask a Muslim, for example, you've got a group of du'at who will do things, or 2-3 people standing at a table. You always benefit from their experience.
That's true.
You know, in the old days, when we used to go out, so I used to travel and do the da'wah workshop on Saturday, and then Sunday I would take people into the street, but I would always insist, before we depart, we have to sit down and talk about what happened. So I learned this from sales. In sales, you know, cubicles, in sales teams, they have short cubicles, so the salespeople could talk to each other about techniques. And so if we go out and I take a group of people, this was their first time in the world in their life giving da'wah, and we spend 2 hours in the street, but there are 10 of us, and then we come back and each one talks about what he learned. So now I'm learning from 20 hours of experience, not just my 2 hours of experience. And I personally, like all the, you know, traveling and giving the da'wah workshop, a lot of the things, I don't know what percentage of the stuff I say is stuff I learned from other du'at. You know, I mean, nobody makes everything up themselves, right? Or invents their own.
Sure.
And it's like, you hear a great answer here. This is what you should have told them. We even we realized patterns. If I could share this story, in Calgary, Canada, we had Islam Awareness Week. And every one of us had an encounter with an atheist or two.
Sure.
But I insisted at the end of the week, we all sit and talk about what happened. And there was something great happened, Dr. Marwan, when we all sat down and talked about our experiences. Every time someone brought up an atheist, we recognized the pattern. And we realized that every time someone said, I met an atheist, and I asked him, what made you atheist? And he said, I had leukemia as a child. I suffered a lot. I thought, why would God do that to an innocent child? I said, there's no God. This other guy said, I knew a family that was a very good family, but they died on their private jet. And why would God kill them? They're good people. So then we saw this pattern. And then, of course, this is no news now to you, right? But this is the day we discovered it. But only when we all sat and we discovered the pattern that, hey, it's nothing to do with I was in physics class, I was in biology class. It was just emotional stuff, you know? But you benefit like that. So that's another bonus. You also benefit from other people's experience, not just your own experience.
Is there any like reward in the hereafter, like with someone, because of someone that became Muslim because of you?
Allah. You know, someone said, well, I don't know even which one to start with. Like, I can't even tell you which one is more powerful. Like, I had two things in mind. One of them is, well, you said the hereafter, so let me go with the second one, right? So the Prophet mentioned that when if someone teaches someone something good and they act upon it, you keep getting the reward of every time they act upon it. And then he mentions that
Allahu Akbar. Yeah.
And it doesn't take any of your, it doesn't decrease any of your recompense, any of your reward. So one person put it, I guess, in young people video game terms. He said it's like having a second life. I think there's a game called Second Life, right? So he said it's like having a second life. Like, I taught someone how to pray. So every Dhuhr prayer, I pray and he prays. It's like he's a second me, getting reward for me. I brought him to Islam. So every time he makes dhikr, and by the way, this is famously known as one of the famous tafsirs of what Al-Kawthar is, because Al-Kawthar, linguistically, it is a good that is great in quality and quantity. So some scholars, besides the hadith of the Kawthar being a river in Al-Jannah, they said Al-Kawthar is the ongoing reward of the Prophet. Every minute someone says Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, or fast, or praise, the Prophet gets reward because he's the one who taught us that action. And the same thing happens to you. So like this, this couple came to me. I spoke, hypothetically, I spoke to them about Islam. They became Muslim. They moved on. Every time they do good deeds, inshallah, I'm getting it without any decrease. Then they have children. One time, this businessman, he put together this Excel document. He said, if you bring 2 people to Islam and they have 2 children, within a few generations, there are thousands of people who are Muslim because of you. Thousands of people. So imagine that. Just, Dr. Marwan, people understand things when, not your audience, but I mean, like, generally, people understand when it's money. If I tell them there's a stock, it's going to close in 1 hour, but whatever you put into it will multiply by 7, and then it'll by 10, then it'll multiply by 7, then it'll multiply by 100, then it'll just keep multiplying. But the stock will close in 1 hour. Put everything, you go borrow money and sell your car cheap, put everything in it, because it multiplies in this way. That one multiplies in a crazier way, right? A more profound way. And people just realize, no, I don't know.
Someone asked this question. I wanted to display it to you, inshallah. So this is with Abdul Rahman Salar. He said, what can we do about the situation happened in France? Should you stay? I mean, I don't want to go into the politics out of it, but I think, and I want you to comment into this aspect. I think you 100% agree with me. Many of these things are happening, whether it was 9/11 and all these things are crazy. I think it's happening because we're not doing our part of da'wah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so there is a fine line between reacting, the proper reaction, and just being manipulated by. I'll give you an example. This was like 9 years ago. I was in Sudan at the time, and they brought up, it was the 2nd or 3rd anniversary of the Denmark cartoons or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was a Friday. So I was certain, I don't know why I trusted the imams and their hikmah. I was certain that they will tell people to react properly, like true followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. La, they got people excited, and after the salah, everybody went out into the streets, and they said they're gonna go to, this was Denmark, okay? They were gonna march to the American embassy, which I don't know what America has to do with it, okay? But this is just, they were gonna march, this was Denmark, but they're gonna march to the American embassy. But then the American embassy had just moved out of the city, so it was too far.
Right.
So, and I'm not making this up, so they burnt down the German embassy.
But I feel like people do something, and they end up, most of the time, end up doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
Like the guy who killed that teacher or whatever. I mean, okay, your action have made things worse, but I mean, I understand that people like to do something. Why don't they just move this positive energy or this negative energy into doing something that is positive? And I think this is something that Muslims don't understand nowadays.
I got it for you, Doctor. I got it for you in numbers, okay? This little like, what do you call it? This production, this magazine that initially in France put the pictures there and intending to insult. We know that's not the Prophet. We know he was the most handsome. Forget that nonsense. And that little Charlie Hebdo thing. Do you know its maximum circulation was what, Doctor?
What?
30,000. 30,000. That was the maximum circulation. So it was a small. I can't find the word, not production, but it was a small. a small little thing. 30,000 was the maximum. You know, after those people, so now in trying to defend the Prophet from being insulted, according to them, 30,000 times, they went and did that. Then what happened? That became a collector's edition. So the editor, he ordered 1 million copies to be produced, and then he saw the demand was too high, and he ordered another million. So you took a production from 30,000 to distribute 2 million. We calculated that in class one time. That's an increase of 23,333%. Dr. Marwan, if you hired every marketing company in America, could they increase anything by 23,000%? So it's like there's a fine line between reacting properly, reacting like followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also, you know what I imagine, Doctor? I have crazy imagination. I just imagine that there is a room, okay, where there's this button, and this kuffar show each other this button. They go in that room, like, hey, John, you want to see something interesting? If you press this button, 1 billion Muslims are going to go crazy. And then they press it. They press it, and then, you know what happened? When the cartoons came out, the riots in Pakistan, in Islamabad, 2 people died. Nobody said anything about the 2 people dying. And they destroyed cars. So, and in Sudan, I was thinking, so they push a button, and I go throw rocks at a poor fellow Muslim Sudanese police officer. I throw rocks at him, he throws tear gas at me. They just push a button, we start destroying and burning our cities. Allah, it doesn't make sense.
No.
This is how it's done.
Again, because of the fact they don't know what to say, they don't know what to do. They're delivering all their frustration in a negative way. And subhanallah, and that's why we're here. That's why we're making the show. So we're telling people, yeah, ikhwan, my dear brothers and sisters, there's a better way for us to deliver this. If you're frustrated, okay, let's do something about it. Let's drive this anger in a right way, in which that you do dawah. You show people that, okay, why you displaying our prophet like this way? By telling them, look, okay, this is what the Prophet of Islam have done. This is what he did. This is his miracles. This is what he called for. And etc. Subhanallah.
Yeah, and I have to say, like my producer off camera said to me, said, it doesn't mean we remain quiet. And absolutely, we don't remain quiet. But I would love for us, when we open our mouth, we see something intellectual, not just burn our city down.
That's true.
How is Denmark affected when I burn my own city down? It doesn't make any sense.
No.
So that's why I said there's a fine line between reacting and staying quiet.
That's true. I mean, no, this is the sunnah of Sayyidina Rasulullah. This is what Prophet Muhammad asked us to do. I mean, there is, it's, Prophet Muhammad even when he was in power, even when he was in power, look at how he dealt with the people who did not know, how he dealt with the people who are ignorant. Because there is an issue here between dealing with someone with knowledge about Islam and someone who is ignorant. And the majority of the people around us, yeah, ikhwan, they don't know nothing about Islam. How are you going to expect for them to be angry on them, and yet they don't know nothing? And they're asking you to if you give them Islam in the nicest way, they will absorb it. But the question is, we're not doing that from the beginning.
So, hey, Dr. Mona, I gotta tell you something though. There's a Sira book, and it's actually, and in my opinion, one of the best Sira books, an excellent book. But the author did something interesting. He, in one chapter, gathered all the techniques that the Quraysh used to silence the Prophet ﷺ or to drown out his voice by singing, telling stories, all these things. And there were 25. And the author always mentions at the end of a section, lessons learned, right? So he mentioned 25 or 26 maybe different techniques the Quraysh used against the Prophet ﷺ. And I remember back then, it was like after, these were the civil rights activism days. I said, this is going to be great. The next chapter, he's going to say how the Prophet ﷺ combated each one of those techniques, and we can share this with our civil rights people. They can understand how to do it the Sunnah way. Then I found not a single reaction from the Prophet ﷺ. There's not a narration when they called him a majnoon. He said, hey, I'm not mad. I'm not a madman, but Allah will refute it in the Quran. There's one narration where Abu Lahab is following him. The Prophet ﷺ is trying to speak to the delegations at Hajj, and he keeps interrupting him. Hey, don't listen to him. I'm his uncle. We know him very well. He's crazy. Just ignore him. But then the narrator says, the eyewitness says, the young one, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, never once turned around to the older one and said, hey, could you leave me alone? Another ibn Haris, following the Prophet ﷺ, every time he tries to recite Quran, he starts telling a story. People move and listen to his story. Or the girls, they hired the girls to sing and drown out the voice of the Prophet ﷺ. He never once turned to them, not a single narration. He looked at them and said, could you not follow me? Could you go sing somewhere? Not once. So then I started, and this is when I lived in Virginia, there were a lot of shuyukh and scholars, and so I started asking them, why did the Prophet ﷺ react? And you know what a lot of them told me? I never noticed that he never reacted. That was the first thing they said. I never noticed that. And I started going through this. He never reacted. And here's the answer. Why did they use 26 different techniques? Because when he doesn't react, they think it's not working. But it does work. When the girls sing and people listen to them and they can't hear the Quran, does it work or not? It does work. But because he doesn't react, they moved on to another technique and another. That's brains. And we had this example 1400 years ago. And here, Johnny, let me push this button. We burn our city down.
This is deep. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Ya Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have the best of character. Subhanaka. And people, wallahi, I wish people know him. Allah al-Azim. Allah al-Musta'an. Allah al-Musta'an. So, Akhi, the thing is, this is the last method that I use on people. This is when everything is, when I none of my cards work, I tell them of the last card. Okay, and this is my last card. And I want you to help me out with this, Sheikh Kamal. I tell them, you make da'wah to save yourself.
Hello.
In which that, because thing is, if when we are being quiet, and there is so much hate against Islam and Muslim, okay, at the end of the day, this hate is gonna come to you. And if you say, I'm gonna mind my business, I'm not gonna care about what's outside, I'm not gonna tell people about Islam, eventually it's gonna come, and people's gonna maybe throw something at you. People might attack your women, or people gonna. So I say, and this is something that this is, like I said, this is the last resort that I say. I said, people. I mean, hey, and unfortunately, we live in a West where you could buy anything, and you could people sometimes attack you, and they could get away with it.
Yeah.
So I say, make da'wah to save yourself, to save your family, to save the identity of your kids, ya akhi. Because thing is, if you don't show people, if people not going to be tolerant of you, they will attack you, and they're going to throw misconceptions at your family and your kids, and your kids might change their religion. So I think this is like I said, this is the last resort. And please, if you could kind of say something about this, Sheikh Kamal, I would really appreciate it.
Oof. And that card should work, because if that card doesn't work, that means you're probably in the morgue speaking to the dead person. Like, خلاص, منتهي ده. Look, Sheikhna, it's exactly what you're saying, but just from a different. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. All right, you are the best nation sent forth for humanity. For الناس in the Quran means Muslims and non-Muslims. Why? تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر إلى آخر الآية. You enjoin what is good, you forbid what is evil. وتؤمنون بالله, you believe in Allah. Now, we are supposed to be, let's put it in other terms, the greatest thing that happened to people. Okay, when a Muslim moves into a neighborhood, that should be the greatest thing that happened to that neighborhood. When Muslim merchants came to Manila in the Philippines, that was the greatest thing that happened to Manila. We're supposed to be something great, a great nation, the greatest nation ever sent to people. But then when someone wants to just sit back and be just taken with the waves like dirt, كغثاء السيل. I remember in the old books, Dr. Marwan, they used to always translate غثاء السيل like the froth of the oceans, like the foam you see in the ocean. And then one day I read it translated as like the filth. And I was like, filth? That hurts shwaya. And I looked it up. Al-ghutha is the filth. Something filthy, like the little broken twigs and dirt that flies with the water. And it hurt. It touched home. Like we were going to be like al-ghutha, like the filth, that just rubbish that's taken by the waves. What position do you want to be in? I want to be in the position where we're the greatest nation sent to you, to humanity. Or I'm just going to sit back. And then in the future, you pull my wife's hijab off, you peer pressure my children, you vote this way. Go right, go left with the waves. It's just a bad position to accept. And one way to be against it, to fight against that, is to be the example. You're the one, you're the educator. And that's why, Dr. Marwan, if you can allow me another point, wallahi, I always used to say this in the da'wah class. When you're the da'iyah, you are the educator. You're the educator. And the educator can never be in the lower position. And you can't have someone teach second grade, and the second graders are here and the teacher is here. It's impossible. The educator is always at the higher position. And that's where you choose to be, Wallahu a'lam.
Allah yazid al-khair. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, this is, like I said, this is what we're trying to do is that to show, da'wah should be our life. I mean, there is no excuse for us not to make da'wah. And there is, if you are at work, you could do this. If you are with your family, you should do this. If you are with your colleagues, you should do this. If you are just sitting between your neighbors, you should do it. Always find a way, find a form for us to do it. Because this is, at the end of the day, this is like, again, this is helps you in this dunya and helps you in the hereafter.
Directly or indirectly, right, Doctor?
That's true.
It's not always in your face. I tell you this thing what happened to when I was at the doctor's, right? We were sitting waiting, it's boring. There's one lady there. So I told my wife, look, I'm just gonna go along with me. So I started explaining to my wife why there's one God.
SubhanAllah. Oh, SubhanAllah, beautiful.
If my wife is not there, I use my phone. Okay, so let me finish the story. So I was explaining to him that Allah, and by the way, Allah is just God's name in Arabic. It's not a different God. It's the same God of Moses. And the beautiful thing about this technique, nobody can open their mouth. Because if someone opens their mouth, I'm going to make them look crazy. If someone interrupts me and says, Jesus was Lord, I'll tell them, excuse me, hold on one second. Excuse me? I'm not talking يعني صح عيب عليك, I'm talking to this person. So even indirect, like some people don't have the whatever, the courage, the guts, the social whatever. خلاص, indirect. I mean, online mail stuff, there's just room for work to be done. So much room.
There is indeed, and I think you're realizing the how Al-Hassan and Hussein have corrected the guy who does not know how to
right? Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Very good. And again, look, there is, if you, and this is, to be honest, يا اخوان, this is our mission in Ask a Muslim. We're not trying to, I mean, our number one goal is for us to encourage people, make it easy for people to make da'wah. If you guys need materials, we will send it to you. If you need banners, we will send it to you. If you need education, mashallah, we have the best scholars. Sheikh Kamal Makki is with us, and inshallah, we're trying to inshallah fix a program with him. So the point here, if you want help, we will help you. But and the thing is, this is an obligation. It's not something that wallahi I feel like doing on once a month or once a year. This is an ongoing thing, and as people living here in the West, it makes it even a higher obligation on us because it's standing in front of our face each and every day. And this is something, my dear respect brothers, we need to understand. One last minute advice, Sheikh Kamal Makki, that you would want to give to the audience. I
don't know if you mentioned the app or not, but hey, this is no joke. This is my phone. I don't know if you can see this thing. Oh, I'm not even playing games. I use this app, Ask a Muslim app, and yes. I need biblical verses. I need boom, like, and that's another example of how it's at your fingertips, literally. At your fingertips, literally.
Yeah, this app is like, if you don't know how to make da'wah for even to our Christian brothers and sisters in humanity, this is a help you. If you want to looking for verses that shows you how to, that there is only one God, we could show what is it in the Bible. If you're looking for to show them where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in the Bible, this is in the so anything you want, inshallah, and we keep up. This is something that we update each whenever somebody give us a question that people don't know how to answer, we add it to the app. And again, this is something that is an ongoing process. And jazakumullah khairan.
This is my favorite. I really love this. It's one of my favorite apps for real. Look at this handsome man right there. Look at that.
I don't know who's this man.
No, it really is a great app. It really is. I really use it. It's not like I'm not paid to say anything here,
So yeah, inshallah. So the point here is jazakumullah khair, my dear brothers and sisters. I know the whole point of this is for us to show that this is an obligation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and honor you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. We're trying to collect people and doing the right thing, and this is something that we are here to help our neighbors. We are here to help the people around us. And there's there is many pathways of da'wah, and inshallah we'll try to help whoever is there. So jazakumullah khair for listening. Please, we would ask the brothers and the sisters who are watching this to share and subscribe. And for you to see the beautiful face of Sheikh Kamal, wallahi, it was the word. And again, for me, maybe I'm gonna be watching this by myself, trying to get myself fulfillment with being with this guy, great guy. So سبحانك وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.